Hi guys, this is Kirby with SkullclampMTG, and today I'm opening a set booster box of the Brothers War, lovingly known as BRO for abbreviation, for the store, for Retrofix games. So we are going to crack on in. In these set boosters, we're going to have some old border artifacts, and we're going to have some Transformers cards, so there are definitely some chase cards available in these, along with talking about a lot of our limited modern Pioneer play available for this. We'll mention some stuff for Legacy, some stuff for Commander, but I definitely am modern Pioneer and limited focus. Let's get these guys out of the box. These also are really pretty. You know, this is a set based on like Magic's history of Mishra versus Urza. So we have a ton of like historical cards and characters in these boxes that are going to make it really interesting as we get into it. But for now, let's start cracking. One thing we are going to be looking for in these is those Transformers cards. Those are going for a crazy amount right now, and they also have some just cool effects on them. Full art lands. They're doing different full art lands in every set now, too. I'm just going to separate these out by rarity as we go. Great reprint here in Obstinate Bailiff, downshifted to an uncommon. I do play some Pauper, so common would have been even cooler, but with Liliana in Standard right now and Pioneer, being able to discard this to gain 4 life and get a free 4/4 is pretty darn awesome. Corrupt, another reprint in this set. I got killed. I was just at MTG Summit, huge event with a Win a Black Lotus for a sealed pre-release. And I died to this card at least 3 times over 7 rounds. Just someone having like 6 swamps out and just 6ing me to drain. Pretty brutal card. Here's a new one I want to talk about. We're hitting some bangers right in a row. It's very much like Thoughtseize or Duress, but this one only targets artifacts or creatures. But after you make them discard it, you get to pick a card from their artifact or creature card from their graveyard and exile that. And also exiles the card from their hand. So that is definitely a very cool effect to be able to get the double exile. And here's our first old border artifact. We got a liquid metal coating, played in Modern and Karn boards. Make a separate pile for those ones. Hall of Tagason, that's how I'm pronouncing it, we're going to run with it. Basic untapped land, adds a colorless, 1 mana tap, add a mana vein color, and it also has 4, make a Power Stone. Not sure how much that'll see play, but it is an interesting card. And then, nope, our Power Stone token. All right, start on the next one. We're going crazy this time. We're going across and then down until we run out of packs. So not really doing any mapping at all. All right, got an art series card up front. Not a signed one, don't care. Full art basic land. These lotuses are interesting, or locusts. The 3 mana, 2/1, you get to exile a card, and if it's a creature, they lose 1 life. Really good and limited at fighting against all the reanimate effects we have right now, and all of the unearths. Prowler, Retrieval Agent. Soldiers are very common in this set. There's a lot of soldier effects. This one's interesting. Almost a, so close to being a Stitcher Supplier, but not exactly there. When it enters, you mill 2. When it dies, it gives a creature -1/-1. I don't know if that gets there for any limited formats, but very close. Reprint of the Painlands, the other half from the previous set, Dominaria United. So we have a Land War Waste in full art here. Ooh, we got our mythic old border artifact, Mind's Eye. These are amazing. This is a really popular one in Commander. Just gives you a lot of effects. And Visions of Thyrexia. This one's kind of cool. It's a common red effect of exiling a card that you can play. And then if you didn't play it this turn, you get to create a tapped Power Stone token. So this ramps out those artifacts really quick. If you have a way to tap those artifacts to do damage to someone, a lot of red effects that do that, you can really just ramp out ways to kill people. And foil Argothian Opportunist. They are doing tokens. I wasn't sure how this was going to work, but +1 on one side, and then they say prototype on the other side to kind of keep track of those. Very hard to keep track of prototype creatures otherwise. Let's keep my order going over here. In this limited format, it really does look like Power Stone token. It does look like the best limited color is actually green, which isn't super common. Another reprint, Monastery Swiftspear here. This one's been reprinted a few times lately, but this is the first time it's gone into standard in a while. Very powerful red card that kills people very fast. And this is just a Lava Coil update. It actually hits Planeswalkers also and exiles them. Nifty little effect. Also, very artifact-centric set. Door to Nothingness. If you ever want to destroy a player, this is the way they do it. 10 mana, destroy target player. And, oh, cool. Ornithopter. Classic. This is one they're talking about in older formats. They had a blue version of this card before, but this is a black version. Exile 3 cards and exile another 3. Look at both piles. Turn one face up. Your opponent picks which one goes in your hand and you lose 3 life. That is some crazy card advantage, and you get to do some crazy mind games with people. You know, turning up a face-up pile of things that you actually want in your graveyard, kind of forcing them to pick the other one. You can kind of hide information that way. Just very cool effect. And Levitating Statue. We got 2 artifact sets in a row now, which means Limited for Brothers War is very artifact-centric. You can actually play Disenchant Effects main deck, and they're never really dead. Very hard to build a deck without artifacts in this set. Oh. There we go. Worm Coil. That's cool. Basic, Machine Over Matter. These prototype effects that you get just a smaller creature of that color instead of the full-size one are very interesting. You can actually flicker or reanimate them or something like that to get the full-size effect, even though you just cast the smaller version, which is very cool. Gaia's Gift. Every time a set comes out, I pick up cards for whatever card is even possibly playable in Modern or Infect. I don't usually play them, but I make a pile. This is the one. +1 counter at instant speed, reach, trample, hexproof, and indestructible until end of turn. The trample, hexproof, and indestructible kind of let you just attack on through. Probably not playable, but I have a stack of cards that are maybes. Let's see. Disciples of Gix is an interesting one. Runechanter's Pike. +X+0, where X is the number of instant or sorcery cards in your graveyard. Very fun one in different commander decks. I think it's the black Infect Dragon commander. Just uses this as a win con almost. Misery Shadow. I'm very sorry. If a creature your opponent controls would die, exile instead, and a colorless +1/+1 till end of turn. I expect this card to be heavily played in Standard right now. Maybe good enough for Pioneer, but we haven't figured that out yet. And Scrapwork Cohort. All these creatures having Unearth has been very interesting. Limited games, you just have so much more advantage in cards of, you just never really seem to run out of stuff when you're like, oh, I'll just reanimate a creature. That's been pretty good. These schematic art cards are very cool. I really like how they brought back almost all the original artists of the original cards to do these schematics also. Recommission. I think this may see play in Pioneer and Standard since we don't have actual Unearth. Return target artifact or creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. If a creature enters the battlefield this way, it enters with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. 2 mana white, that is just a slightly more expensive Unearth with upside. I think that has the ability to see play in some decks, especially some aggressive decks, just as like your reach effect. Oh, I put a common in uncommon pile. I don't know what I'm doing. Here we go. Lodestone Golem. This is a staple in Vintage and has seen a lot of play in Legacy. Non-artifact creatures cost 1 more to cast. It's a 5/3. It's a great way to kill people while slowing them down. And Ichor Wallspring. Originally famous from the KCI, Croc Clan Ironworks decks. This is a great artifact that when it enters or dies, you draw a card. Just some good card advantage if you have a way to sacrifice it. And, oh, here's a cool mythic. Clay Champion. Gets 3 +1/+1 counters for each green spent to cast it. And 2 other creatures get a +1/+1 counter for each white. This weekend in a limited event, I cast this for green, white. And I made 2 other creatures get +2/+2 counters, and then I made this guy an 8/8. The X lets you cast as much mana as you want to cast him. Very cool card. Here's a fun one. Sacrifice an artifact or creature, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Kind of the Bone Shards effect, but with an upgrade of hitting planeswalkers, and you can actually sack an artifact for it instead. And then Proxy card. Alright, next pack. Yeah, limited in this, I found black is very good. It has very cheap removal, along with red and white. Very typical Mardu set does that. And then on top of it having a very, very powerful green. The green cares about artifacts a lot in this set, and that has really allowed green to get a power scoop in an artifact set that it never had before. I'm going to stop here and talk about this one. This is my favorite card in the set. Third Path Iconoclast. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. So this is making several relevant things. The tokens it makes are soldiers and artifacts. And then it's non-creature. This is very similar to Young Pyromancer, but being red-blue and making more relevant tokens and triggering off more spells. You know, your Mishra's Baubles trigger this. Your artifact combo pieces trigger this. Your hate pieces like Thorn of Amethyst would trigger this, along with being more relevant. Also in Legacy, small relevance, but this is blue. It does pitch to Force of Will in your red-blue decks, where normally Young Pyromancer can get stuck in your hand. I think this card is going to see play all the way down to Vintage, actually. We did get a new Soldier Lord. It does cost 4, but soldiers get +1/+1. It's a 3/4. In Limited, that's playable, possibly in Standard. Here we go. Powerhouse Mishra. Permanents you control have ward sacrifice a permanent, so your opponents are sacrificing things to target you. And then each artifact card in your graveyard has unearth 1 black-red. This is, I mean, I can't wait to see commander decks based around this. Just heavy artifact commander decks. Reanimating like combo pieces even. It's just such an interesting effect. The schematic, like alt art one, is also very pretty. We got a Bonesaw for an old border artifact. And cool mythic. We have a mythic Urza Silex, 2 white. Each player chooses 6 lands they control, destroy all other permanents. And then when it's put in exile from the battlefield, you may pay 2. If you do, search your library for a Planeswalker and put it in your hand. So for 6 mana, you get to basically nuke the board and add a Planeswalker to your hand. Pretty cool. And hey, foil Corrupt. Corrupt just being such a powerhouse. Like in drafting this, with how many artifacts you have, you can easily actually just draft mono black, play a bunch of Corrupts, and literally use that as your win con while your creatures block, grind, do everything else. Oh, we got Disenchant. I was just talking about this. This is actually main deckable in this format with how many artifacts and enchantments are available. These are cool. We got 2 in a row. These are Urza's creatures instead of Urza lands. They're named after the lands. But when you have all of them in play, they actually trigger larger abilities. Kind of a cool effect. They cost a little lot, but it's assemblable in Pioneer. Or in Limited, I'm sorry. I guess you can do it in Pioneer. I don't know how good that'd be. This one's another nice one. When it comes into play, create a tap Power Stone. Sack an artifact or creature. Other creatures get +1/+0 and Menace and Haste. This is a really good effect with how many Power Stone makers are in the format. So you can really use this to power that out. Oh, and here's a mythic. Direxium Processor. This is a very old card that's seen some fun play in Commander. Nothing else, but very good Commander card. Pay any amount of life when it comes in play, and then 4 mana create an XX where X is the amount of life paid. So in Commander, you're like, I'm just going to go to 20 immediately. You put a 20 on this, and every turn for 4 mana, you make a 20/20. Pretty easy way to make an unbeatable board. We got an Urza's Command here. The commands in this set are pretty cool. 4 mana for all of them, instance. Creatures you don't control get -2/-0. Create a tap Power Stone. You get 2 of these. Create a tap 0/0 colors construct with power and toughness equal to the number of artifacts you control. Scry 1, draw a card. Not exactly a cryptic command, but definitely a good effect. And hey, we got another Clay Champion, foil one this time. And our first list card. Stitch together, return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. And if you have Threshold, which is 7 cards in your graveyard, you just return it directly to play. Kind of a cool reanimate effect. Put that in with our old border stuff. There's not a lot of Planeswalkers in the set that people are really hunting for, but the new Teferi I would love to pull. That is a very powerful card. Man, I'm grabbing these basics easily with our art cards. All right, Veteran's Power Blade. I like these color-centric. You can equip to Soldier for just white on this one. Color-centric artifacts have been very interesting. Try to keep my piles in one piece. A lot of soldiers in this set. I think like every relevant white creature is actually a soldier. This one's interesting. So in limited, you could actually go infinite with the green guy that makes green mana equal to his power and toughness. This, and then Staff of Domination. And you could just pump your board infinitely, tap all their creatures. Infinite mana. In limited, kind of crazy, really hard to assemble, but very cool if you can. Foundry Inspector. Oddly, one of the most relevant old border artifacts if you're just opening to play. This making artifacts cost 1 less when in a set filled with artifacts stacks up very quickly. This is a fun one, too. Exile target non-land permanent opponent controls and all tokens that player controls with the same name as that permanent. We've had a lot of 1 white-black effects like this that just exile a permanent. This one, like if you want to hit the Power Stone hitting everything else, very relevant. Scatter Rake. And another Proxy. These are cool. These have magic backs. You can write the name on them to use for things. Pretty nice to have a stack of those on hand when needed. Power Stone. Art card. And basic land. All right, we got these packs down. We know the order. I like these. They did a lot of high cost effects on cards. Because Power Stones, they say you can't cast non-artifact cards with them, but you can activate abilities. They put a lot of creatures with really overcosted abilities in this set because you have ways to activate them with how many Power Stones you're making. 7 mana, draw 2 cards when you make 3 Power Stones really means 4 mana, draw 2 cards, which is amazing to have on a 2/3 for 3 creature. Does that full? Like this one, 5 mana. This one actually costs 1 less for each creature in your graveyard. This has a lot of that. But being able to just tap to make each player lose 2 life is pretty relevant. A lot of white removal and enchantment. Hey, we got our first Transformer card too. Mortem Meets the Eye means this has a flip side. Let's see. Remove 1 or more +1/+1 counters from it. Deals that much damage to target creature and convert him. First strike. Living Metal. As long as each turn this vehicle is a creature. Whenever you cast a spell that targets 1 or more creatures or vehicles you control, put that many +1/+1 counters on him. Pretty cool card. We got Elsewhere Flask. When it enters, draw a card, sacrifice. Each land you control becomes a type of your choice until end of turn. And hey, they did 1 tribal land in this set. Blue-white, reveal soldier or control soldier, it's untapped. And then 5, give all your soldiers +1/+1. I'm expecting to see this in Standard, possibly Pioneer. I think that Soldiers deck is real. 2 mana Thalia is actually a soldier, so we have some good effects from that. And our obligatory foil. Yeah, this I played in a 1,000+ person limited event in Salt Lake City just this past weekend for this set. I don't know when this is going to release, but this was one of the best large limited events I had ever had. I had a ton of fun at it, and I thought the pools were cool. Having those old border artifacts in the draft packs made for very interesting events. Burnished Heart, got an elk, a non-Oko elk. 3 mana, sacrifice, search for 2 basic lands, put them on the battlefield, tap and shuffle. Just a really good ramp effect that's not in green. Really important. The Mightstone, here's a cool one. So this one combines with Urza to make a big planeswalker. I'll put this aside. If we find the other half, I'll assemble it. But this has a ton of effects. On the front side, it's just good. You get to draw 2 cards when it enters. Target creature gets -5/-5 till end of turn, and it just taps for colorless. Can't be non-artifact spells, just like the regular Power Stones. Obligatory artifact, and another card from the list. This is Cast Down, just a destroy target non-legendary creature. List cards get their own pile. We're going to open a lot of Power Stone tokens. I just feel it. That has to be the most common token in this. Let's see. Art card, basic, back to the commons. Some of these Flash ones, they printed creatures and artifacts with that to kind of make the format more interesting, were very good. As crazy as it sounds, this is an amazing limited removal spell. Hits creatures with flying. If you're in green, you can make your board bigger than their stuff. Or artifact or enchantment, and exiling so it can't come back. Pretty relevant. They did a uncommon, a rare, and a mythic for Urza and Mishra. So we got one of each of those. Some more Thopters. This one's a 2/1 for 3 flying unearth. Pretty cool. Here's an awesome one. Astral Cornucopia, XXX. Add mana equal to number of charge counters. Gets 1 for each X. Another pretty cool commander card. Well, to go along with our Urza's command, we got Mishra's command. This one I think is actually much better. It's X-Red. Discard up to X cards. They draw a card for each card discarded this way. This spell deals X damage to a creature or planeswalker, and then target creature gets +X/+0 and gains haste until end turn. You get to pick 2 of these. Pretty awesome. And our obligatory foil. While I'm doing this, please check out retrofixgames.com, your source of singles, board games, video games, and sealed product. And then while you're at it, check out SkullclampMTG on Facebook and Twitter. We post content and we open videos for retro. We got our first quote-unquote signed art card here. That's a pretty cool one to be Urza. Foil Mountain. Cool. I'll just put it in basics. Finding some more unearth artifacts. 5 mana. This is basically original Juggernaut. 5/3 trample, has to attack each turn, but it has unearth. They block it or kill it. It's coming back and doing the same thing for a turn. More white removal. This set had some great removal for limited. 3 damage to target tapped creature, you gain 2 life. Kills the Juggernaut we just looked at. And more examples of that overcosted mana abilities use Power Stones. This one's cool because it's a 2 mana 2/2, pretty typical draft card. Can't be blocked by artifact creatures, way more relevant in this format than any other format since Mirrodin. And then 7 mana, put 2+1/+1 counters on it. Gets out of hand pretty quickly. Evolving Wilds is reprinted in this. This one's a fling, but just for 4 mana instead of 2, and then it does let you draw a card though. Got another prototype creature. Ooh, Key to the City. Discard I actually died to this card also over the weekend. Discard a card, target creature can't be blocked this turn. And whenever it becomes untapped, you may pay 2 if you do draw a card. So, you tap this to make it unblockable. When you go to untap on your upkeep, you draw a card off of it, and you can just kill your opponent that way. Self-Assembler, when it enters battlefield, search your library for an assembly worker, reveal it, put it in your hand. Just goes and finds more assembly workers. Green, when it enters battlefield, put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature you control. So for 3 mana, this can enter as a 4/3, and then it has 2 green unearth. And then here's one I've been waiting to talk about. We opened a cool foil version. 5 mana instant exile target creature planeswalker. Not super powerful outside of limited at that, but this costs 1 less to cast for each creature card in your graveyard. Modern decks like Living End, Dredge, the Hollow One decks, all those decks want an effect like this. Also, some interesting play with maybe the Cascade decks in Living End, because this doesn't cost 1, doesn't cost 2, can't be accidentally cascaded into. So I think this card's going to see quite a bit of play. For a common to be this hyped is pretty wild. This would normally be something in like the uncommon category. In older sets may have even been a rare, but Power Creep has kind of changed that. And then another list card, we got Legendary Enchantment Shrine. The shrines go really well. They reprinted a bunch of, or they printed new ones in Neon Dynasty Kamigawa. People have been building, and then they added some even to, I think one of the specialty sets had some, or maybe it was one of the commander decks. But people really like the shrines, and now you have enough to make commander decks out of them, which is pretty cool. Not signed, don't care. All right. This one's another one. It's just an insult artifact effect, but it draws a card when it enters. Makes an artifact a 4/4 in addition to its other types. No One Left Behind. 3 less to cast if you target a creature card mana 3 or less, but it puts a creature back in play. Another 2 mana unearth effect. And here's another one. This sounds crazy, but people are talking about playing this all the way down into Legacy. It's a 1 mana 1/1, but you can get it with Urza Saga. And that has green, sacrifice, exile, and it's exile. Target non-creature artifact or non-creature enchantment. So it gets rid of a ton of stuff that you worry about on the board, and it exiles, doesn't destroy, that's relevant. Along with it just gains 2 life. It's like definitely a role player, but it's a card people are actually very excited about. Kind of interesting for such a small effect, people think. Here's a modern Legacy one. Look at the top card of your library at any time. Cast an artifact spell or color spells from the top. Pay life, exiled top card. This lets you go very deep in your artifact decks. And we got Soul Partition. Exile target non-land permanent. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. A spell cast by this opponent costs 2 more to cast. A temporary removal spell. And we got another cool limited one. 10 mana, 10/10 with Reach and Trample. For 5 mana, you can get it as a 3/5 prototype. Just always excited when I see 10 mana, 10/10s. How can you complain about that? Oh, we got our first soldier token. I think we've only seen Power Stones before this. Kind of cool. Unsigned. Gix. All right. Yeah, this one's another good one. Sacrifice, draw a card, 1 mana, 1/1, but it has Unearth. So you, for 4 mana, it's 6 mana, but it draws 2 cards and it's a creature. Definitely good enough for limited. Target soldier gains flying till end of turn. You can use your Power Stones to pay for that effect. This is another one. Return target artifact, enchantment, or planeswalker from your graveyard to the battlefield. Create a tapped Power Stone token. Just another reanimate effect in a set filled with graveyard-centric things. Wouldn't exactly think of it being such an artifact-based set, but between Unearth and at least 3 reanimate effects, you have a lot of that. This one, whenever it attacks, you exile a card from a graveyard. When you're fighting other Unearth decks, being able to do that is pretty relevant. You actually want your graveyard hate in this format. Here's a Mishra I find pretty cool. Haste, 1 mana tap, discard a card, draw a card. Whenever you discard an artifact card, add red. You can only trigger it once a turn, but a pretty relevant effect. Symmetry Matrix, just a commander card. Whenever a creature with power equal to its toughness enters the battlefield under your control, pay 1, draw a card. Millstone, this is another really good one in limited actually. When you're playing with 40 card decks, it's pretty easy just to mill someone out if you have a good enough board. Steel Seraph, here's the really good white prototype one. Flying, 3/3, 1 white prototype, or 6 mana, 5/4. Begin combat on your turn, target creature and can target itself. Gains your choice of flying, vigilance, or lifelink until end of turn. Random foil. Alright guys, we're getting into these. I didn't realize until we started opening these, you actually can't draft set boosters anymore. They're only 12 cards. So definitely lighter on the cards here. You know, we joke about drafting these sometimes, but you can't. I definitely have to check how many are actually in collector's boosters, because I've definitely tried to convince friends to draft those, and maybe that's not something I can do. Maybe I actually have to look at that one a little more and figure out my life. Another big boy with Unearth. Menace, 8/6, being your upkeep, tap him unless you pay 3, and then a nice 8 mana Unearth to get in for 8 again. Another prototype. Oh, this is the one I was talking about that can go infinite. He's 6 mana, 3/6, add green equal to his power, or you can prototype him as a 1/3. White double strike one, Sigil of Vour. Whenever it attacks alone, it gets +1/+1 for each creature you control. Oh, Deathloom Ritualist. This is one we haven't gotten to yet to talk about. Add X mana of any color or X number of creature cards in your graveyard. There are a lot of commander decks that are going to eat this card up. This is just such a powerful effect in your graveyard-based decks. Random foil. All right, we're on this pack now. It's hard to keep track when we're going back and forward. Let's see. Art card. It's just like giant mechs in all these full art lands. Like you see the giant mech robot in the back. Feels like we're playing like Pacific Rim card game over here. This is one the Dredge community in Modern has been talking about playing along with the Hollow One decks. I think it's just a little weak, but I picked up 4 just to be safe. 2 mana, 2/1, when it enters the battlefield, discard a card and draw a card. That's definitely a Dredge effect. And it has Unearth 1 red. So I think there's potential to play that in a few decks. I just don't think it's settled down and people have decided if it's good enough yet or not. You know, those are cards just worth picking up a lot of times, though. Underground River, really close to Underground Sea, but it costs you a life. Blue-black, full art. Springleaf Drum, this is a very played card in multiple decks, all the way down to Legacy. It's just a 1 mana artifact, but you can tap a creature to make a mana. This card's powerful. This is a 5 mana 2/7 with Unearth green. Not a huge effect, but playing lands from graveyard. Effects like this in the past, like Crucible of Worlds, have been powerhouses in the formats they're in. Hey, foil recommission. Card I think is good enough. And then this Transformer token. This is the rare token in the set. Menace Death Touch 3/3 with the little symbol for commanders down there. Kind of cool. or commanders, for transformers. There's so many different magic things now I lose track, but hey, 2-mana construct. I saved that token for afterwards because it was a cool one. I don't know which one that is. Soul Guide Lantern? We're gonna go with it. Another big old mech robot. And then we'll get into these. Aeronaut's Wings, always unlimited flyers are just so valuable. 4 mana to give a creature +1/+0 and flying that's reusable is probably good enough to play. Probably good enough for me to disenchant it. Mr.'s Research Desk. Some of these artifacts that aren't creatures have a nerf. I don't know if we've gotten unearth cards before that weren't creatures, but I have not seen them. And this is just exile the top 2 of your deck, and you may play 1 until your next turn. Another random legend. We have a lot of those in this set. Soldier, creatures with mana value 3 or less get +1/+0. When it enters, you actually get to reanimate 1. Another reanimate effect. Sketch art for liquid metal coating. Pretty cool. Ooh, chase card right here. Diabolical Intent. This is a reprint from a very old set, I believe Torment, but you can call me out in the comments if I'm wrong on that. Sacrifice a creature, search your library for a card, put it in your hand, then shuffle. This is like very close to Demonic Tutor level of power level. These are going to be super sought after. People can't wait to play these in Pioneer, Standard, Modern. Haven't been legal in those sets before, so definitely going to be an interesting set with those. It's like being able to play 2-mana tutors in a Modern or Pioneer format is just wild to me. You know, you're going to be able to go get your, sack your Stitcher Supplier to go get your Greasefang and be able to, play your combo deck at a better rate. And that's going to be kind of crazy to think about, just how that'll go. Here's another reprint, Disfigure. Just 1 mana -2/2. If people are playing a ton of Soldier decks in Standard, this is going to be a card I'll main deck in my black deck, or at least sideboard. Just an effect you're going to want. Giant Growth reprint. Okay, cool thing. You can play your Alpha Giant Growths in Standard if you find a deck that's good enough to play them. You just happen to have them, you can replace them with those. You can play older versions. Kind of cool. A lot more prototype creatures. Phyrexian Horror. We haven't gotten a lot of Phyrexian creatures until recently. You know, they went back and eroded a bunch of creatures on Gaver to be Phyrexian type, including all the Infect creatures. Made me kind of sad, but they made some more and they're making their way in. For all you Commander players, Prismatic Talisman, Colorless Gain of Life. Pretty good. Thoran Spider. This is another interesting one. 7 mana, which you're using your Power Stones to do. Look at the top 4 cards of your library, reveal an artifact from among them, put it in your hand, put the rest on the bottom. So it just lets you dig deeper and deeper. And when it enters the battlefield, you and a target opponent each create a Power Stone token. And, hey, Veteran's Blade, a soldier equipped foil. A little proxy card. Good to go. All right, we're getting down in packs. 12 left. Making our way through the box. Power Stone token. Oh, we got another signed art card. Cool. This is Titania. The backside of Titania. Relevant soldier effects. Another Urza. Shapeshifter. Interesting type for an artifact creature. Here we go. Perilous Vault. I remember when this was printed, every control deck in Standard was playing a ton of these. 5 mana, exile all non-land permanents. Everyone goes back to just lands. Jalem Tome's always been a good one. Draw a card, discard a card. Good in artifact decks, good in graveyard decks, good in a lot of commander decks, and really good in limited, I found out by playing it. Jammed this in limited, and it fixed my draws pretty much every turn. Mechanized Warfare. If a red or artifact creature source you control would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent opponent controls, deals that much damage +1. If that's the type of deck you're playing, this is good. This one's kind of washed out, looks a little pink. Big Old Spider. I played that Big Old Spider ×2 in our limited event, and I found it to be pretty good. I mean, just a 2/3 that's blocking big old flyers is pretty decent, so not a problem on that. Basic. This one was a blowout in a lot of matches from some limited decks. Has Flash for 1 mana, +1/+0, and it gives first strike until end of turn. So you're getting into combat, they're trying to block and thinking they're going to trade with your creature. This hits it, and you win that trade. And that's usually the difference in a limited game. Play better during combat. I wish this was a dragon, but it's a drake. Pretty cool still. Flying haste when it enters the battlefield. Up to one target card from the graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. Get rid of that, I don't know, you know they have reanimate spells, you need to get rid of it. Or their, giant unearth guy. Clay Revenant gets to return from your graveyard to your hand for 3 mana. Actually not a bad effect for a 1/2 if you just need to constantly do that. Entering tap so you can't go infinite on your blocking. This is never cool. On return target permanent you control to its owner's hand. If it has an unearth, exile it, then return to its owner's hand. So you get to actually pick up your unearthed creatures for 3 mana. You unearth it, attack, and then before it would exile at the end of turn, you just exile it and then pick it back up. Kind of a cool effect if that's what you're building your decks around. And this effect has been downshifted to uncommon. Trample, players can't gain life. Chromatic Star, really good filtering effect for artifact decks, combo decks, and Tron. Got that as a reprint. Here we go. Brother's End, sorcery. 3 damage to each creature in each planeswalker, or destroy all artifacts with mana value 3 or less. Oh, foil rare, Argos Sanctum of Nature. This is the other half of Titania. Big old one. Make a big old creature. Foil is pretty cool. There's battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary green creature. Add green, 4 mana tap, create a 2/2 bear, mill 3 cards. I think that card's probably playable in some green-based commander decks, just as a green source that has some other effects, especially with the milling. I know people were talking about like Gitrog Frog probably wants some effect like that, especially with you being able to pick up lands over and over. It's probably just a relevant effect. Sibling Rivalry, Bitter Reunion. Cool. When it enters battlefield, discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. We got a lot of effects like this, like Cathartic Reunion, but this is just another version. It does have the 1 sack, creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. Another card I'm considering for some sort of dredge deck, giving the problem is all your creatures enter tapped at the end of turn. So not as relevant, but cool effect. Calamity's Wake, instant speed. Exile all graveyards. Players can't cast non-creature spells this turn. Very similar to a Silence against the combo deck. And this is another one for mono white decks. Exile target creature, mana value less than or equal to the number of planes you control. Its control gains 3 life. Probably has some uses in older formats. It does require your deck basically to be all planes, but that does count like triomes and other things like shocklands. So Swift Boots, big commander card, 2 mana, equipped 1, hexproof and haste. Here's another good one, Feldon Ronin Excavator. Haste, can't block. Whenever he is dealt damage, exile that many cards from the top of your library. Choose one of them and you can play it until your next turn. Lets you dig really deep if you're just attacking into really big creatures. It's either they block or that dies. Like, imagine them just not blocking for like 3 or 4 turns just because they don't want you to dig like 5 cards deep into their 5/5. I don't know if that's playable in anything, to be honest, but you can also just target it with your own spells. Oh, that's pretty cool. You can use it to if you have that, there's one that does 13 to the whole board and costs 1 less for each creature in play. It's a commander card, and I don't remember the name of it right now. But if you're using that, you can 13 the board, look at 13 cards, find another one you want to cast. Not a bad effect. Gixin Puppeteer. Whenever you draw a card, draw your second card each turn, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. When he dies, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. Pretty solid effect, good card advantage, and a pretty cool ability. We talked about Junkyard Genius already, just letting you stack those power stones to pump your board. An ad card. All right, we're getting down in packs. We have 8 left. Yeah, I think the red-black sacrifice artifact deck in this format is very good. I think the green-white artifacts matter deck is very good. And I think the blue-white soldiers deck, if you can assemble it in draft, is very good. There's a lot of good effects here. I'm leaving out a lot of other archetypes, but I think those are probably the most powerful. This one won me a lot of games. 3 mana, make a non-artifact creature you control, a 4/4 artifact creature. 1 mana, 1/1, 3 mana, make a 4/4. Your power stones, your other old border artifacts you open, things like that just become 4/4s. It's a good mana investment, and it's never a good way to kill people. This is a fun one that I want in like a mono blue commander deck. Draw a card for each island you control and discard 2 cards. Like drawing like 7 cards off of this and then discarding 2 is just insane. Here's the Soul Guide Lantern we were looking for. Another Mishra, the one that we opened a non-border one, or a alt border one, whatever you want to call them. But yep, permanents you control have Ward. Common foil. Oh, really good list card, Elvish Champion. 2 mana, or 3 mana, 2/2, but elves you control get +1/+1 in Forest Walk. Similar to, you know, from the old days sets, they had a goblin and then a merfolk that did the same thing. But elves decks are playable in multiple formats, Commander, Pioneer, Modern. May not be the top tier of decks, but they sure put up some results. Worth playing. Forest, Overwhelming Remorse, that common I'm really high on. Dig Site, some more Soldiers. Artificer, Arms Race, Human Soldier. This one's cool. 1 mana, 2/1. Those are always playable in lots of things. But look at 4 mana. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. Reveal a creature card, 3 or less from among them. Put it in your hand. Put the rest on the bottom. It's 1 mana, 2/1 that actually digs you deeper into cards. We have an Ivory Tower. Yeah, I was right. It was a Soul Guide Lantern. Here's the alt border one. Ooh, I was talking about Teferi. We're going to talk about him for a second here, actually. So 5 mana, 4 loyalty, Planeswalker. 0 draw a card. But the big effect is whenever you draw a card, put a loyalty counter on Teferi. So you draw for your turn, he gets a counter. You cast a Treasure Cruise, he gets 3 counters. You 0 him, you draw a card, you get a counter. And then the big effect is -2. Create a 2/2 blue spirit token with whenever you draw a card, put a +1 counter on it. And then if you're just pumping yourself into drawing cards, you can -12 them. Opponent chooses a permanent they control and returns it to their hand, then shuffles all non-land permanents into their library. It's just a sweeper. If you are just drawing a card every turn, just a single card, you can -2, -2, -2 with this, make 3 of those guys, and on the 4th turn, it should be enough damage to kill them, even unless they have gigantic blockers. So that is a powerhouse effect. He was a crazy mythic to open. Oh, we got foil Swiftspear. That's super cool. That's a really good card. And this is a list one from Kaldheim. Whenever it becomes tapped, if it's enchanted or equipped, make a 2/1. That's some dwarf goodies from the dwarf sets. Well, we've opened some pretty good cards already. I was very excited about that Teferi. That's like really the best Planeswalker in this set. A lot of foils of that. Some good commons. These ones are cool. There's a whole series of these that when they die, they make a colorless soldier artifact creature token. And those are just pretty powerful things to play. Reanimate uncommon, Pump Spell, Semblance Anvil. Imprint, when it enters the battlefield, exile a non-land card from your hand. Spells you cast that share a card type with exiled card cost 2 less to cast. Pretty cool effect if you're playing a lot of creatures, artifacts, something like that. You get to exile one, make all the rest cheaper. Another Ichor Wellspring. Oh, Hurkle. Hurkle's only been represented on a card that bounced all the artifacts before. And this one is if you cast a non-creature spell this turn at your end step, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. For each card type among the non-creature spells you've cast this turn, put one of those in your hand. So you can put an instant, a sorcery, an artifact in your hand if you cast all those that turn. The rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Oh, we finally opened a foil Old Border artifact. It is an Ivory Tower. Gain X life, where X is the number of cards in your hand -4. If you're drawing your whole deck or something, I guess that has some relevance. Not really sure. You know, we open a foil artifact, I want it to be like a Worm Coil or a Mishra's Bauble, but we'll keep digging for those. The foiling on that is also really pretty. Like the bottom, they did the old like splattered stained glass look in the text box. Not bad looking cards. Whole collection of foil of those. Power Stone Fracture, No One Left Behind. We got some good effects. Hayward Might. A lot of cards. If you're just someone who picks up cards because you want them if they're maybe playable, this is the set for you. I think all the sets lately have been. I know they're coming out pretty quick, but if you're just buying the cards you may play, this has a lot at common and uncommon that are very cheap that you should pick up and just put in your binder of stuff you're going to play eventually. We open a Gilded Lotus, 5 mana, add 3 mana of any one color, and you get to activate every turn. Unlike, it has to be better than Black Lotus, right? You don't have to sacrifice it. Kai's Reconstruction, look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put up to X artifacts and or creature cards with mana value 3 or less from among them onto the battlefield. So white, 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 and then X. Put that many artifacts into play from the 7. Not a bad effect. Random foil. Oh, man, we've opened some really good list stuff in rares. Ink Eyes. Ninjutsu 5, when it enters when he deals combat damage to a player, you may put a creature card from that player's graveyard into play under your control, and you can regenerate him. That's a super cool surprise effect. All right. I don't know. I guess we're looking for like some of the other like high-end mythic artifacts now, and then some other cool ones from the old border stuff, but we've opened pretty good. Like this is slightly above average box for me. There's like there's a blue prototype in here somewhere that is a kind of a Snapcaster Mage, and I think that card's probably pretty playable. Hopefully I'll open one in the last 3 here to show you. Another limited card that I expect to see standard play and possibly Pioneer if we get the green-white deck into Pioneer. Green-white 1/1, whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, including itself. You start casting artifacts and you make a gigantic board that can kind of beat anything. There we go, Mishra's Bauble. I know it's an uncommon, but that's definitely a chase card seen play in Modern and Legacy. We want to open a ton of those. We got the rare Urza. Artifact creature you control get +2/+2 for a 4 mana 2/3. And then 6 mana create a token that's a copy of target artifact you control, and except it is a 1/1 soldier creature. So you'd start getting pumping out artifacts with that. Foil uncommon, and another list card. We're opening a lot of list cards. We should, but they are good. Lucky Clovers, the 2 mana, cast an adventure, instant or sorcery, copy it. That was a powerhouse in Standard back in the day. All right, guys. Last 3 packs. We're going to get through them, and then we'll finish this video. Let's see what we got. Art card, forest, some commons, uncommons. Here we go. Sword of the Meek. This combos with the white, blue, black artifact, hybrid white, black, blue artifact, Thopter Foundry. Whenever a 1/1 enters the battlefield, you can return this from the graveyard to play. Thopter Foundry lets you sack this to make a 1/1. You gain infinite life, make infinite 1/1s with that effect. Elsewhere Flask, draw a card, 2 mana, sack. A non-foil of Argif, the flip land. And there we go. Foil, old border artifact, Ichor Wellspring. Thopter token. 2 more. See if we can open any other crazy chase cards or crazy old border artifacts now. What have we got? I think I've talked about the most relevant cards in this set, so we're going to look for good cards now. Let's see. Defabricate. Okay, I'm going to talk about this one. Counter target artifact, or activated or triggered ability, and then counter target artifact or enchantment, and then it gets exiled. This is Stifle for 2 mana. That may actually be good enough to see play. You can hit fetch lands with that, and they just get sacrificed. So we're kind of waiting for the word on that one. Adaptive Automaton. Choose a creature type. It's that type including its others, and the chosen type get +1/+1. This is a generic lord for 3 mana. Man, we're going to keep opening Elsewhere Flasks. Hateful Handoff. Draw cards equal to the mana value of target artifact or creature an opponent controls. An opponent gains control, or target creature you control, an opponent gains control of that permanent. I don't think that's playable. We're going to put it in a pile. Rootwire. Okay, here we go. Rootwire Amalgam. Prototype, 2 mana, 2/3, and that has 5 mana, sacrifice, create an XX colorless golem artifact creature token where X is 3 times his power. Gains haste until end of turn. So, you do that, you make a 6/6. Otherwise, you can make a 15/15 for the base power. Curse of Echoes. Enchant player, this is from the Curses. Cast an instant sorcery spell. Each other player may copy that spell and choose new targets. Crazy card in Commander. And last pack. Let's get it done. Let's open something crazy. Let's see what we can get. Take the soldier out. Land out. Art card out. Oh no. Oh, I already snafu'd. All right. Commons. Uncommons. Go for the throat. Another good reprint. Destroy target non-artifact creature. It was safe to put in this set because there's so many artifact creatures. But in other formats, is good, and probably in Standard there will probably be a lot of decks that play no artifacts, and that'll be good. Take flight, give a creature flying. There we go. We got a defense grid. Each spell costs 3 more to cast, except during its controller's turn. This card sees play in like every combo deck in Legacy, sometimes even in Modern, and it's a Karn board card sometimes against control decks. In formats where you're trying to do your thing and you want your opponent not to be able to interact, this is very powerful. You want these. Battlefield Forge, Painland, and never common. Okay. We opened pretty good on this one. We opened halves of Urza and Titania. We opened some really good old border artifacts. And that is it. Don't forget, check out retrofixgames.com or their store in Missoula, Montana. And check out SkullclampMTG. That's me. That's Kirby. On Facebook or Twitter. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. See you on the next box break.